Good day, everyone. I know we will have more and more guests joining us this evening, but just want to thank everybody for coming. I'm Travis Giffen, the Assistant Director of Online Programs at the College of Education. I welcome you all tonight to our alumni panel and networking event. I just want to quickly give everyone a brief overview of the event for the next hour or so, and then get right into things. We will have a panel with two alumni from our programs, Josh Lewicki and Josh Divacenzo. And we'll have them up here for 20 to 30 minutes with a panel, and I have some questions for them. And then we will open things up for a Q&A. There'll be a brief break, and then we'll have opportunity for networking and breakout rooms before bringing everybody back to wrap up for this evening. So with that said, I'll give it over to Josh Lewicki to briefly introduce himself here first.
Sure. Thank you, Travis. Hi, my name is Josh Lewicki. I'm actually from Albany, New York, and so that's where I am right now. I am a advanced placement United States history teacher at a private school here in Albany. I've been there for 8 years. I taught 6 years at the middle school level, and then this is my second year at the high school level. I recently defended my dissertation in November and graduated from UIUC in the online doctorate of education program in the learning design and leadership concentration. So graduated from there in December, and glad to be here, and I appreciate the invite.
Thank you. And Josh, would you introduce yourself?
Of course, and I gotta say this is the first time I've been on a panel with another Josh, so this is going to be very interesting. But glad to be here. Good evening, everybody. My name is Josh Divacenzo. I graduated from U of I in 2017 in the HRD program, so very fortunate to have participated in that. Currently, I work at Columbia University's Climate School, where I work as a senior instructional designer and incoming faculty in the climate school, where I teach a couple different courses there. But I'm excited to kind of reflect upon and share some of the experiences that I had as an online student at U of I, and how that's been able to transfer into some of my career goals, my research goals today. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, thank you both. So I know we still have folks joining us here tonight, but you guys can decide who wants to go first, or I can pick somebody. But if both of you could answer what you were doing before your degree program here at the university.
Sure. We can, I guess, just keep that same order if we're both going to get the same questions, and then that way we don't have to worry about it. So prior to obtaining my degree at UIUC, I was teaching and coaching. And then prior to that, I actually lived in Buffalo, New York, went there for undergrad, a small private school called Canisius College, got a degree in history. I was playing baseball there. I ended up getting injured, and kind of then that's when my focus shifted from, more of an athletic, I guess, perspective to getting more interested in an academic career, whether that was teaching and then moving on and getting a doctorate. And so that happened. And then I moved back here where I actually grew up to Albany, and got a job at the school that I went to growing up. And that's where I've been ever since, prior to completing the program.
Excellent. And prior to completing the program, I was probably at a crossroads that many folks on the call might also be in, where I was up with the question of, do I jump from the labor market, the labor force at that time, and go into a master's degree or a doctoral degree program? And so that was kind of where I was at getting my career started of, do I stop working and go to school? Is it possible to do both? So I was balancing that because I definitely was getting a lot of the feedback from mentors and colleagues, that these are your prime working years. You want to kind of set the foundation. But I also still kind of had that inkling that I wanted to learn more, and that I wanted to kind of further my education. And that really brought me over to the U of I programs, being really tailored to have that type of balance, in the sense that you could kind of stay in your day job, if you will, and then have that experience as a student. So prior to that, I was working in the private sector for one of the financial institutions in the Midwest, in their learning and development technology solutions division. So I was seeing a lot of things that were very practical and on the job, but I was missing a lot of the kind of theoretical underpinnings, more of what the field and the discipline entailed. So that's kind of where the degree program, and specifically the HRD, Human Resource Development track, came very handy in complementing those two experiences.
Thank you. And as you were saying, kind of leads directly into this next question that I have for you is, could you both share why you chose the program that you chose and why you chose University of Illinois-Champaign?
Yeah, I would say first and foremost, exactly what Josh just said, right? This idea that I didn't have to stop working. I'm married, I have a child and a mortgage, and it wasn't something that, I guess leaving that behind wasn't worth it to pursue another degree. And so having the ability to do that 100% online is extremely affordable compared to some of the other programs that I had been looking at. I would say that also just the reputation of the online program in particular was something that continually popped up. I'm talking among, the top 10 schools, in the United States. And so that was obviously attractive. And then the flexibility, just this ability to kind of create your own schedule, work at your own pace. Sometimes there was synchronous courses, sometimes they were asynchronous, but it was a nice blend that didn't feel forced. And so that was probably the primary reason, other than the reputation and having the program that I wanted to pursue my own research interests. Which in turn, now looking back, I think that the broadness of the program, and I was in the EPOL program, and so there was just so much opportunity to pursue the interest that I wanted, and still contribute to the research interests of the professors, and they were all very supportive. But there was a very fine line between them giving me guidance and them giving me complete autonomy, and so. After having a discussion with them in the first couple of courses, it was solidified that this was certainly the right decision for me. So those are just some of the reasons why I ended up choosing the program and sticking with it.
Yeah, and I'm going to echo a lot of what Josh just said in the sense of the robustness of the course catalog was a big deciding factor. So in essence, and again, this might be applicable to some folks that are listening on, I was with an organization that had a very specific or tailored reimbursement for graduate studies. So if you're going on for your master's, they would kind of only fund or contribute to funding a program that was directly aligned to whatever your job function was. So that made it kind of difficult, especially early career, to kind of sign and write in stone that I wanted to be in this one category for my master's and develop and invest the time and the energy into that. Whereas the U of I course catalog kind of was a happy medium between fitting the criteria of what I needed to get kind of reimbursed through my organization, but then being broad enough that I could actually do a little bit more of exploratory type work myself. So for example, there was some course offerings on globalization and education at the time that was still applicable to human resource development. So it did kind of complement that in the sense that I was able to kind of pick and choose what was very applicable to my job, but then also what was just very interesting to me as a student, because of course you're putting a lot of time, you're putting a lot of resources into these programs. You want to make sure that it's still kind of cultivating you, or at least interesting to you. The other thing that I would say that's unique to U of I when you're kind of shopping around the different markets and the different programs available is, and one of the really surprising facts was the faculty and the amount of kind of feedback that you receive. So I know there was initially when I was hesitant to join an online program, I thought, I'm going to submit an assignment and it's going to go off in the abyss and I'm never going to hear back of how I did or any feedback on that. And with a very short time submitting my first assignment at U of I remember this moment very vividly because it kind of set the track for the rest of my U of I experience. I received kind of a whole page of comments on an essay I wrote from a professor who noticeably took the time, read it, provided a lot of feedback, completely challenged my thinking, and really set the stage for, hey, I'm actually in a very serious program and I'm going to have to work hard. I'm going to be challenged intellectually. And from there, it was just kind of an affirmation of the decision I made.
Thank you for that. Yeah, and as you may have seen, if you got here early on some of the intro slides, our program, or online masters, was just ranked number 3 for the second year in a row. So, and I posted a link to an article that was recently published on that, that you can check out after the event, and have that for later. Next question I have for both of you is, could you tell us a little bit more of what it was like during your degree program? I know that Josh just shared a little bit there, but could you expand a little bit more on what it was like during your time in the program?
Yeah, I had an overwhelmingly positive experience. One of the things that I loved the most, and I'm not sure if every program at the college is like this, but they had the 8-week courses. And so kind of my thought process going in was like, if I'm struggling or I'm not sure I'm going to make it through, all I have to do is hammer out 8 weeks and I'm on to something new. I'm on to another one, right? And not only does it allow you to kind of, fulfill your goal of achieving the degree relatively quickly, but just mentally, there's this kind of like the light is always at the end of the tunnel. These courses are never going to drag on. One of the things that I found was I kind of wanted them to. I wanted them to drag on. I wanted them to go a little bit longer because you just kind of start getting into, some really interesting things. I think, having a robust curriculum and course offering is what Josh said there is spot on. And so, that contributed to the, my positive experience, definitely. But like he said, I would say that one of the things that the course offerings allowed for me to do was kind of, have this idea of where I wanted to go with my own research interests and then eventually the dissertation. But at the same time, it didn't stifle me into this kind of narrow pathway that I couldn't get out of. And so one of the things that I kept, they kept reiterating to me, and then I kept recognizing, was this idea that if you go in with a closed mind and say, this is what I'm going to research and here's how I'm going to do it, you miss out on so much of it. And so I think that the course offerings and just the setup of the program generally allowed for, this breadth of knowledge to kind of complement your research interests, which, ends up delivering a much better product. And so my time during the program, I kind of recognized that as I was going through each year. And then another thing, to echo what Josh said also, was this idea of the peer community being mimicked online. That was one of the things that I was afraid of, having this, I show up, Zoom, I don't have to have my camera on, and that's fine. And that's what I did. I had my camera off the majority of the program, but there was also a component to the program where, you were peer reviewing each other's works, 3 and 4 times, in the 8-week course. And so you were constantly in communication. And if you weren't, communicating, you were at least reviewing other people's work, and you felt as though you were a part of a community that could encourage each other to keep going. And so I thought that was not something I was expecting. I was expecting, that isolation that you feel in online master's and doctoral programs, I guess. And I didn't feel that because of the way it was set up. So I really enjoyed that component as well.
Yeah, and I think in terms of the experience, the one kind of common denominator from class to class was just really best in class faculty. The faculty really made a huge difference. Oftentimes you were reading their work, or you were going through and they were talking about their experiences that were at least when it comes to the human resource development, kind of on the cutting edge of what was going on in those spaces. So it just felt like you were learning from the best, and you truly were learning from the best. So it was also a really kind of low risk environment to challenge yourself in terms of your own thinking on things. So prior to kind of graduate studies, you might think that your workplace does it the only way that's possible. And what you learned from your peers in that class were so many different angles. And because the online modality was there, you had perspectives from all around the world that were kind of saying, this is what human resource development or training and education looks like on my side of the planet, opposed to kind of what you're doing day to day. And it opens up your thinking in many ways. The other thing is, I think U of I does an exceptional job of just merging the two worlds as close as possible. So during my time there, I actually got the opportunity to serve on a provost committee on online innovation and education, where they were pulling students from in person to all the online colleges and basically asking us to form a working group. And as someone who enrolled into an online program that assumed I was going to have no type of interaction with the college or or as large of a school as U of I is with the university, that was just something just really interesting to see that you can get as involved as you'd like, and the opportunities are definitely there. So the experience was very fast for me. I mean, I kind of really sped through my program based on my priorities at the time, but jam-packed in that timeline was just some extraordinary touch points that happened in an online program, which is always kind of surprising when I think back at it.
Thank you both. And now for kind of the exciting part, another exciting step is what are you both doing now? What is has anything changed for you, either personally and professionally, and kind of where are you at now in your professional journey?
Yeah, so I'm still in the same role. I'm still a teacher, but one of the things that I've done, I've been through a couple processes of interviews at higher education institutions. Currently through the first round in a school in Tennessee. I'm not at liberty to say which one right now, but I'm hoping that process continues. And one of the things that I kind of fell in love with was something that I didn't think I was going to like in the beginning. My biggest fear was the amount of research, the amount of reading, the amount of writing, and then having that critiqued and criticized. One of the things I kind of ended up falling in love with was the process and having it critiqued by the best, right? And these people that are they're incredibly published, they're world renowned, they've written books, they've presented all over the world. And it's like, when you finally get that mark of approval at the end, there's something almost addicting to that satisfaction. And so one of the things that has kind of changed my mindset, I love teaching, but I also love the research that I did, and I want to continue that research. And so as a high school teacher, I have time to do that, I suppose, but in a higher education institution, it's almost more built in, as you guys know. And so I'm considering switching gears, started that process, and if it happens soon, cool. If not, then we'll keep on trying and go from there. So that's what I've been up to since December. It's happened quick. And so I was happy that I got, you apply and you may hear something, you may not. And so I've heard something from 2 schools already. And I think that probably speaks to the reputation of University of Illinois and these programs. Not me, because they don't know who I am.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, I kind of want to start off with where Josh left off on the reputation and what that can do for your career and stuff. So all of my letter of recommendations for my doctoral studies came from my U of I professors from my online program. So that kind of goes to show as well the relationships that were built over that time, and they were familiar with the work that I wanted to do that I wasn't doing just yet. I was familiar with kind of their research backgrounds, and they actually had connections with the institution that I'm currently at. So it kind of was full circle, and I think on my CV there's always kind of a nice reaction when they do see U of I on it, and the program itself, and education policy, organization, and leadership, and HRD. So I currently work both on a dual appointment at Columbia University's climate school. So I work as a lecturer, and then I also work in one of our research institutions. And the reason I bring up the research institution is that a lot of the work that I learned at U of I and the Human Resource Development Program shaped what I'm doing now, which is creating national scale training and education programs and research projects on disaster preparedness. So actually learning in this online modality actually gave me a lot of a leg up when it came to figuring out how we modify and we transition the National Training and Education Division during the pandemic. So I was able to pull back and think through how my experience was at U of I as an online student, and what we needed to replicate for people that needed disaster preparedness response information in real time in the context of the pandemic. So it does really come full circle. A lot to say that those experiences were incredibly formative and still kind of shapes my research outlook. And even in courses that I develop now for other institutions, Columbia and the University of Pennsylvania, I tap into a lot of the literature that I was exposed to first at U of I. So that's just a small snapshot, but I can't speak highly enough about my experience there.
Thank you both for that. At this time, gonna kind of turn things over to attendees here and guests here with us tonight for questions. If you could raise your hand and then I'll call on you and we'll kind of go through questions that way. Or if you'd rather type them in the chat, you can type them in the chat and then I can relay the message to our panelists here this evening. Jessica, I see you. Should be able to, can you unmute yourself, Jessica?
Yes, hello, Travis.
Okay, wonderful.
My question for the former students would be how long the program took them and what were the speed bumps that they may have encountered throughout the program when they needed to take a break or when they needed to put more effort into the dissertation component, things like that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I started in the spring of 2019 and then just recently graduated this December. So almost a full 3 years. One of the things that I took advantage of were the summers that I had off as a K through 12 educator. I had a lot of time that coincided with not only the dissertation sequence at the end of the program, but I would sometimes there were 2 years where I took 3 courses over the summer because I had the time to do so. Except after the first summer, I actually took a break and decided to do a little bit of traveling instead, just to make sure that this was what I wanted to do. It wasn't that it was overwhelming. It was just that I needed to figure out a time, but a routine, I guess, to figure out how this was going to work in my life. And once that was established, things became much, much easier. I would say that was probably the biggest speed bump that I encountered, especially with the dissertation process, was finding time to research and write and make it meaningful, for kind of large blocks of time. And so establishing that schedule, sticking to it, being open if you have family that are reliant on you, and just, kind of saying, hey, I need your support here. Do I have it? And if I do, okay, great. We need to stick to that plan to the best as possible. And I'll, uphold my end of the bargain as well. And that really worked for me in terms of time management and family life, work balance. And so.
Thank you for that. One quick question from the chat before I lose it. What do you both think made you strong applicants for the programs that you applied for?
I could get a start for that. I think when it came, and I gotta really dig back in the memory for the application process there, but I think when it comes to like writing the personal statement, just being fairly clear that you have kind of a reason, or you're looking for that reason to start your graduate program. A lot of the graduate students that I work with currently, they have kind of like that, at least some sense of the purpose of what they're getting into and what they're doing, and it's kind of a nice compass, of your years and how you want to space it out. So I think what made me a good candidate for the program was more so just a personal preparedness to actually start the program, and really kind of setting some objectives of what I was hoping to get out of it. Of course, that changes once you're enrolled and you see different paths and you're exposed to new information. But again, that personal decision, a lot of what Josh was mentioning of, making sure that things in your personal life are kind of in check, that you can go into a program like this would, of course, make it worthwhile, and just that personal preparedness.
I can respond to that same question too, I guess. One of the things that I think makes the program unique is, like Josh said, all the different paths that people come from, and they come from all over the world. And so that uniqueness that you have, don't feel like that almost, what do they say? It's called like imposter syndrome. Like, maybe I'm not a good candidate for it. You are, right? And any experience that you bring to the program is going to be beneficial. And one of the things that I found that was incredible was, regardless of how unique I thought my experience was, there was somebody else who had something that they could contribute, whether it was they had already been there, they had a similar experience, or it was the professor saying, hey, we've seen this before. Here's kind of, what we think about it. And so I felt very comfortable at that point. And so as far as a strong applicant to the program goes, I would say that you just being you and whatever your credentials are, if you're looking for it, that makes you a strong candidate for the program.
Thank you both. Carlos, I see that you have a question, but Lanissa had one, and I want to see if I can get her unmuted so that she can ask her question.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. You know what? I'm really glad that I tuned in tonight, because both of you come from the two unique experiences that I have. I just left teaching at a K through 12 school. and went to, or I guess back to, an organization where I'm in learning and development again. So that's, both of those have my heart. However, I've looked at the U of I curriculum and have toyed around with applying probably for the last 3 years, at 2 years. But here's what I'd like to know, because everything that you're saying tonight is really checking off every single solitary box for me. And so I'm looking to get in pretty quickly. Two-part question. One, when is the deadline for registration for the upcoming class? And the second question is, within the application process, what were some of the most difficult parts or the hurdles that someone who is applying should look for?
Have the deadline. So for the master's degree, upcoming deadline for term B is February 15th. And then is that the program you're asking about? And then so everybody else, in case anybody else has a question about that, for the Doctor of Education application deadline is April 15th for the program that starts next fall, in fall 2022.
That's the one I want.
Good deal.
For the panelists, what was something that was difficult, or were there anything difficult about the application process, and what are some of the hurdles a new applicant should be aware of?
Yeah, I'd say just reaction to that, and hearing about your experience as well. Well, the one thing that I would kind of point out is organizational support goes a long way. So, if you're coming from an L&D department, or a K through 12 setting, making sure that your manager is aware of what you're doing, or if you're the manager, that your direct reports are aware of what you're doing, and that there's kind of like a support network in your workplace for what you're about to embark on. I think that was potentially one of the earlier barriers of just kind of having this conversation of, hey, I'm very interested in going back to school. This is kind of the time commitment. It's going to go a lot better if I have your support moving forward on it, and just having those types of conversations, I would say.
Awesome.
Yeah, I would agree. And they go a long way for your letters of recommendation too. I mean, we all know how that process goes. I feel like the last 3 years of my life, I've had to beg for a lot of letters of recommendation for different things. And now, it's just like, so I, get those in order early. And then, it's the application process itself was relatively simple. It's very straightforward in my experience, I thought. And then I think maybe the most difficult part was, writing I think they asked for like a teaching statement or a philosophy of some sort, just kind of saying, what experiences you have that would help you, bring a positive look to the program, those types of things. And so, writing about yourself, I think, can sometimes be weird. It can be a little bit difficult, but yeah, other than that, it was pretty simple. It wasn't too difficult.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for the questions. And now Carlos.
Hello, thank you for your time tonight. So as you were saying, a lot of people come from a lot of different backgrounds all across the world, and they're currently in a lot of different settings. I know that the two of you didn't necessarily have this particular problem, but as a teacher, former teacher who taught for 13 years, and I have currently taking time off to raise my 2 newborn children, it's kind of like the stay-at-home dad experience right now. We're just like, is attempting to do an online master's or doctorate something that is feasible? Juggling a 6-year-old, a 3-year-old, COVID, all these things. So in your experience, or at least your observations of other students in the program, how critical is it to be in a teaching or education setting throughout the program? Is it absolutely necessary? Is it just another hurdle, or so on? Thank you.
I can go. I would say there's a couple of components, I think, to your question, right? It's so individual. It's what you think you can handle. However, as far as not necessarily being in the classroom right now, I wouldn't see that as something that is a barrier to your ability to complete the coursework. in the capacity that you want or to see fit, especially because you have 13 years of experience doing it. You'll be able to draw off of those experiences. I'm trying to think through, and I can't recall until I actually had to conduct my study a time where it was a necessity that I was a practitioner for any of the coursework. I could be wrong on that now that that I'm thinking through, but I would also say that, it would be the equivalent of, if you were in the middle of a job transition, halfway through the program, you decide to get a new job and, you're not doing what you were doing before. That doesn't mean that you can't continue the program. So I would maybe look at it like that, but I would just maybe reach out to somebody and ask those questions. They may have a better answer. Josh, you might have a better answer.
No, I was just gonna say, Carlos, I think you have plenty of experience that's gonna complement your coursework and complement the group discussions. Oftentimes at the graduate level, you're gonna be exposed to a lot of literature that you probably will reflect back on your coursework from your experiences. So I wouldn't say experience is necessarily a barrier. And if anything, I think a lot of your peers will probably be able to learn from you from that classroom experience and in that context. The other thing I would say is it was very kind of normal to encounter other students that had families and family responsibilities. And especially with group projects, if you just communicate and let people know, like I'm on parental duty for this amount of hours or this window of time, everyone's very accommodating to that and very are open and can adjust to that. So I just want to put that out there as well, at least from the students that were part of the experience when I was there.
Same, I agree.
So I think a great question that's been asked by a couple different people that leads really right off of kind of what Carlos was talking about is a couple of people have asked, what's it like how did you achieve, kind of like work-life school balance? Were you able to, what was it like being in the programs while you were doing everything else that you do outside of your programs? I know that we've touched on that a little bit, but if you could just expand on that a bit more.
Yeah, again, I would really just kind of focus on finding that routine. That was massively helpful, and not doing too much. If you recognize that something isn't working and that you've maybe overdone it, then there's nothing wrong with taking a part of term off. And that's one of the other things that I liked about the 8-week courses was that it allowed for you to, okay, the first part of the fall semester you could take a course, but then take one off if you felt as though it was too much at that point in time. And I think that was extremely valuable in terms of that work-life balance. And I do think that there is such a thing as that work-life balance, but I also think that you need to be open to the fact that it could deviate and it could not go according to plan. And that's okay too. Every single person, master's, doctoral level, it doesn't matter. Anybody who's a working professional or a stay-at-home dad professional, right? That's a thing too. Like that's a job, has experienced those types of barriers, and I would say that especially here, especially with this cohort of professors and faculty, every single one of them is accommodating and understanding as long as you're proactive in communicating with them that, hey, something's not going according to my plan. Is there any way we can figure that out together? And that's been massively helpful for me throughout the coursework and then the sequence of the dissertation as well. So.
Yeah, and I would say definitely that routine point. It is going to be different for everybody. And I'm going to have a kind of a nerdy response to this now, but the resources that you're given are just extremely good in terms of the access to the complete library system in the digital space. So you're not going to be relying on, hours and hours of Google searches for your stuff. You could really leverage a lot of the existing resources that any student as part of the university would have. So they do kind of tailor that. And I definitely recommend leveraging that to make your assignments go a little bit easier and being able to navigate things like that.
Yeah, off of that, I know with the 8-week classes, and many people take classes 2 or 3 times a semester, so I have maybe 2 classes in the 8-week period, or maybe three classes during the 8-week period. Is that similar to what both of you saw or did?
Yeah, definitely. I would say, to be honest, one of the things that one of the first negative experiences that I actually didn't have it, but it was with somebody that was in one of the same courses I was they weren't able to do the 3. They were trying to do 2 in one part of term. And they just recognized that it was too much, but it didn't end their time in the program. They just decided to take it at a different time. So it's possible, but it depends on what else you have going on and what you can do. So.
Right. And then Rebecca, I saw you had a question in the chat, but here you are now. So if you'd like to ask, hopefully.
Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you. I thought I would just give a little bit more context and maybe explain my question in person. I thought that might be easier. So I think a lot of us, including myself, are educators, K-12 educators looking to pivot to instructional design. So I'm in the fast track program already. But I guess for you, Josh D, do you have any advice for us in terms of marketing our skill set or reaching out for internships, things that might help us get our foot in the door? Because we know that the market is surely going to be a little bit more saturated after this difficult school year.
Yeah, that's an excellent question and topic, Rebecca. I think instructional design is in the spotlight right now. A lot of interest. It's a very interesting space to see how it's progressed over time. Two thoughts on that. The first would be that instructional design is now kind of becoming divvied up in the sense of folks that are doing instructional design for K through 12 specifically, and then there's instructional design for adults, and that could be higher education and workplace. So when you can kind of have like that compass or that orientation of, I want to focus instructional design efforts on K through 12, that becomes a little bit more of like your specialized area, right? And it's very difficult to be a competitive instructional designer who does both, because of course, how an adult learns is very different than how a student learns the objectives and motives. So my first suggestion would be kind of deciding, do I want to focus on K through 12 education, or do I want to focus on adult education for instructional design? The second piece of advice would be begin building out a portfolio immediately. So essentially, in any of these instructional design type interviews, they're going to ask you, what have you worked on? Do you have examples, or how have you approached different tasks, from curriculum design to even like one module. And many of these portfolios, they don't need to be like the full in-depth course. It could just be samples and snippets of how you approach it. The uniqueness of how you approach your portfolio is what's going to set you apart from other instructional designers, because we have very fixed models in instructional design that everybody is kind of a common denominator, but what you bring to a curriculum, or what considerations you have that are different than other instructional designers will of course kind of help you stand out. I hope that helps. I think any further education in instructional design also is helpful, so that you're familiar with adult learning theory if you're focusing on adults, or looking at K through 12 models, etc. So great question, and it's a question I think a lot of people have been asking lately. So hopefully that helps.
Thank you for that. I know we're running about out of time here for questions. I did want to let you know, if you have any questions that didn't get answered, you can email the email address that I just put in the chat there below. I want to thank both of you for taking the time this evening and sharing about yourselves and answering questions for everybody here in attendance tonight. With that said, I want to briefly give everybody about 2 minutes to get a drink of water or anything that you would need. And then I'm going to put up a short poll for other types of student events that you would like to maybe see, so we can get some input there. And then bring people back for quick breakout rooms and networking this evening. So I'll give everybody about 2 minutes. Be back here at 5:40 CST. Well, it looks like it's been about 2 minutes. Hope everybody was able to get a drink of water, get up and stretch. Thank you for everybody who's given us feedback so far. I'm gonna split everybody out into breakout rooms. The questions I have to kind of get things started are, share your name, share what program of study or program of interest that you either recently graduated from, or what program that you are interested in learning more about, and then maybe share a current professional or personal goal that you have. I'm gonna break everybody out for about 10 minutes, and then I'll bring everybody back for a little bit of a debrief and wrap things up for this evening. Welcome back, everybody. Before we dismiss for today, just wanted to offer a bit of time to see if there's anything anybody would want to share that they learned either from the panel presentation earlier this evening or in their small group for networking. I hope that you were all at least able to make one other connection with somebody either in the program or interested in the program, so that you know that you're not that different from everybody else. But I just wanted to see if anybody had anything they'd like to share. Carlos.
Yeah, I just want to say hi to Selena. She was in my breakout session, but she was cut off by the time. So she was laying down awesome truth, and regretfully, we didn't completely hear her thoughts. But hearing from Omar and Selena, both with overseas international experience, I just got to say, it's really invigorating. And I went into the session very hesitant about myself and why I want to do this. But just with the chat and then the breakout session, hearing these two other minds, it's very reassuring and invigorating. So thank you, Selena. Thank you, Omar. I appreciate it very much for the brief time I got to talk to you. I hope to talk to you soon.
Thank you, Carlos. And Kyle.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I'll echo what Carlos said, and I'll say that I was really inspired because there are some great minds in this world. And I believe that I got two different individuals with a lot of passion in different places in their career. One individual who's still in school right now and is looking to the next step, which is wonderful. And that's very encouraging and motivating. And another individual who's been in their profession for a while and has worked outside of where they currently are and has gone abroad. And I'm really, really, really interested in seeing how that individual's career progresses in their academic career, their professional career. So it just spirits me to know that these are the individuals who are currently leaders and are going to be future leaders with a new skill set that's afforded to them through this program or whatever it is that they choose to pursue. So this is very inspiring.
Thank you. And thank you all for joining us this evening. With that, I want to just again thank our panelists. Josh G had to take off here a little bit ago, but thank you all for attending. Thank you all for joining us as guests this evening. Just want to let everybody know, if you're interested in the Instructional Design Master Track course, our Term B deadline program, the Term B deadline is February 28th for applications. For the EDM, the spring term B deadline is February 15th, and then summer term A deadline is April 15th. And for the EDD program for starting next fall, April 15th. There will be a recording of this event, and it will get emailed to you all in about 12 hours from the email address you use to sign up for the event. If for some reason you don't get it, you can email me at tgiffen@illinois.edu. Thank you all again, and have a great evening or day.